The crowd had gathered for the graduation ceremony. Crisp uniforms, polished boots, and the low hum of pride filling the air. But for Lieutenant Sarah Keane, the applause was nothing but noise. Her hands were steady, but her stomach churned. Because standing just a few feet away was Captain Douglas Hale, the man who had humiliated her in front of the entire platoon 3 months earlier, and thought she'd never fight back. Before I tell you what happened next, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I love knowing who's listening. 3 months earlier, Sarah had arrived at Fort Hadley, a base notorious for testing not just strength, but resolve. She'd earned her place through sheer grit, top of her class, flawless field scores, and the kind of discipline that didn't bend under pressure. But none of that mattered to Hale. He was the kind of officer who used charm as a weapon, smiling when he insulted, laughing when he intimidated. The kind who thought power meant control. And from day one, he made her his target. At first, it was small things. Accidental remarks during drills, assigning her extra shifts, mocking her leadership in front of recruits. Then, it became public humiliation. One morning, during hand-to-hand training, he'd pinned her to the mat after she slipped during a demonstration. "See that?" he'd said, turning to the watching recruits. "This is why you don't put emotions in a uniform." Laughter rippled through the room. Sarah stared up at him, her cheek pressed to the cold mat, humiliation burning like acid through her veins. She wanted to fight back, but she also knew the truth. In the military, reputation is oxygen, and if she lost control, they'd say she proved him right. So she stayed silent. For a while. But silence has a way of building pressure, like steam in a locked chamber. And by the time graduation day arrived, Sarah had reached her limit. The auditorium was packed, 284 soldiers, officers, and families. The air buzzed with anticipation as awards were handed out, medals gleaming under fluorescent light. Hale was at the front, grinning as he handed out commendations. When Sarah's name was called, she rose from her seat, head held high. The same man who'd mocked her now had to shake her hand in front of everyone. She could feel his gaze, confident, dismissive. He leaned in as she approached and whispered, low enough for only her to hear, "Careful. Keane, don't trip on your way up this time." Something in her snapped. As she reached the stage, Hale made the mistake of trying to guide her forward with a hand on her arm. The grip was too tight, the kind that wasn't guidance but dominance. The crowd saw a friendly gesture. She felt a warning. Her mind flashed back. The mat, the laughter, the shame. But this time, her body didn't freeze. In one clean, precise motion, Sarah twisted her wrist, broke his grip, and pivoted. Her hand clamped down on his elbow. Leverage, torque, and control. Just as she'd practiced hundreds of times. Then came the sound. Crack. A sharp, unmistakable snap that echoed through the auditorium. Captain Hale dropped to one knee, clutching his arm in shock and pain. The room fell silent. 284 pairs of eyes watched in disbelief. Sarah didn't move. Didn't flinch. She just stood over him, calm, centered, breathing steady. "I told you," she said quietly. "Respect isn't something you fake. It's something you earn." Security rushed forward, the ceremony frozen mid-applause. Hale was escorted out, his career unraveling faster than his temper ever had. And while the official report later called it an unfortunate training accident, everyone knew what had really happened. By the next morning, Sarah's name was on everyone's lips, some in admiration, others in fear. She didn't revel in it. She wasn't proud of the violence, but she also didn't regret defending her dignity. Because what no one saw in that moment wasn't anger, it was liberation. A week later, she sat alone by the flight line, the evening sun turning the runway gold. Her commanding officer, Colonel Myers, approached quietly. "Hell of a move, Lieutenant," he said, sitting beside her. "You could have walked away." "I did. For months." He nodded slowly. "Sometimes walking away is strength. Sometimes standing still is." Sarah looked out at the horizon. "I didn't want to hurt him. I just wanted him to stop." The colonel sighed. "Then maybe you did the one thing that finally made him listen." The two sat in silence, the kind that feels heavy but necessary. When her next assignment orders came through, Sarah was promoted. Quietly, without ceremony, but with respect. Word spread that Hale had filed no complaint. Maybe shame kept him quiet. Or maybe, deep down, even he knew he'd earned it. At the next ceremony, Sarah stood among the new recruits. Young, nervous faces full of promise. She watched them the way she once watched her own officers. And when she saw a female cadet flinch at a raised voice, Sarah stepped forward. Her words were calm, but strong. You don't have to shout to be heard. And you don't have to stay silent to be respected. Because courage isn't always about fighting wars. Sometimes it's about standing tall when someone tries to make you small. Because respect isn't given. It's claimed. And sometimes it takes just one quiet soldier to remind the world that silence is not the same as weakness. If this story inspired you, share it with someone who needs to hear it. And subscribe to Whispered Words for more stories that prove courage doesn't always roar. Sometimes it just stands its ground.